Hi, welcome to my blog. My name is Tom Shu, and today we're going to look at distracting elements in an image and how to fix them. Okay, so there's like several types of photographers. There's like a photojournalist, and what he does is he goes out and takes pictures of different events that go on in the world that are newsworthy, or they're meant to inspire somebody, or share different events in the world. And his job is to frame things properly. And as you can see that as a photojournalist, I blew this. Um, I didn't crop correctly where his foot is, and you can see that I didn't get a straight line. My horizon line is off. Okay, so I could have framed it differently so I didn't have distracting elements. Um, there was a lot of people standing around. I didn't have room to budge, and I wanted to take this picture. As a portrait photographer, you would never take a picture with distracting elements. Say, like this bucket was in the scene, you'd take it out of the scene. Um, like an editorial type of photographer, a guy that's or a gal, a person that's doing pictures for editorial work, is telling a story based on what a client needs. So if there's something wrong in the scene, again, you'd fix it before you ever made the shot. Then you have somebody that's illustrative. An illustrative photographer would be somebody that fixes elements in post. So if they didn't do their work properly in post for an illustration, which means that they didn't remove this bucket or something like that, then they didn't do a good job as an illustrator or an illustrative photographer. So this is what I consider street photography, where you have limited area to shoot in. Okay, you grab quickly what you can, and then you fix it in post. I know that's not what most people want to hear. Is we want to fix it right in camera. However, I can't stop in the middle of a dance and go, "Excuse me, fellas, can we move this bucket out of the way? How about your buddy over here with these big white shoelaces on? It's really distracting in my scene. I need to get those out. And you, could you tuck your foot in behind over here so I can't see? Could you, matter of fact, just move out of the scene altogether?" I can't do any of those things. I have to take what I can get. So let's get rid of some of these distracting elements. And then if I have time, I'll show you how to straighten this horizon. If not, we'll do it in another tutorial. All right, so first of all, what do you see? When you close your eyes and you open it, the first thing you should see, or your eyes should be forced to, is this guy in the front. This is our subject. I mean, he's really putting in work, but there's so much stuff going on in the scene. Bright yellow flowers in the background. Uh, this fellow standing here and his shoes sticking out behind his head. These bright white shoes. Anything that's bright in the scene, white in the scene, is going to draw your eyes. It's going to compete for attention. So we want to deal with that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the background layer. We're going to put our safety net in. That's Control J or Command J on a Mac. It does double your file size. Okay. So if we want to fix shoes, we're not going to do that on the whole layer. So let's start with this bucket. Working on this layer, I'm going to grab the lasso tool and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, maybe a little bit more. And I am just going to make a selection around this bucket. Maybe I'll take a couple attempts. But I want to kind of do, I mean, not a super clean one, but pretty clean. All right. So now we're going to do Control J or Command J on a Mac, and we're going to put that on its own layer. Now that we've got that bucket on its own layer, you can see it's right there by itself. We want to make a selection. We don't want to affect everything around the bucket. We just want to affect that green bucket. We want to make it darker. We don't need a neon green bucket in our scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Select, and we're going to, let's see here. Maybe I'm not on the right one. Filter, no, type, layer, image. I don't use this one very often. Color range. Yeah, it was under select. I want to select the color range. So we want to go in here, and it's saying we want to make a selection, and the preview is quick mask. It's a mode for masking, and we're going to use that. So we're going to come over and click on this bucket, this green bucket, and you see that we clicked on it once. And if you click at different spots, what it will do, it will substitute your selection. But if you hold down the Shift key and you click, it will allow you to make a selection till the whole bucket the green bucket has been selected. Because there's a whole bunch of different shades of green. And we're selecting a range. And with the plus symbol holding the shift, we go through and click it all. We'll make a selection of this bucket. Okay, so we click OK, and we're making a selection. And you can see that the bucket has been selected. We want to grow this selection a little bit. So we go Selection, Refine Edge, okay, and we're going to feather it a little bit. And you'll see that it will get kind of like, oh, that's too much. We're going to feather it a little bit, and then I'm going to shift that edge out. And you can see that my selection is growing if I go too much. Okay, that looks pretty good. Maybe I need to back off the feathering just a hair. And I'm going to do Smart Radius. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this Refine Radius brush, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm just going to paint along this edge. Whoop. I need to make the brush smarter, or smaller. It's not liking that, so maybe we pull the feather off a little bit. Okay. Okay, there we go. That's better. We'll go along the bottom of the bucket here. And if you want to minus the selection, you just hold down the Alt key, and it will refine it right to the bucket edge. So we select OK. So we made this selection. Now what we can do is we can do adjustments. And since we're going to just do it just to this layer only, we don't want to make an adjustment layer over here. We want to make an adjustment here. Image, Adjustments, and we're going to do Brightness Contrast. So we can take that bucket and we can darken it some. And we can change the contrast so it's not so bright in the image. Okay, so we select OK. Let's zoom back out a little bit so we can see what's going on. We'll turn back on our image, and there's before and after. And if we need to make it darker, we can. We can desaturate it. And if we take this opacity off, you can see that it gives it our neon back. So let's go back in there. Let's deselect it. Control D to deselect the bucket. We'll do Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation. Okay, and we'll make it a little bit darker. Oh, we want to cancel this. I want the selection back. I want it to stay right on the selection. Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation. Okay, and I want to drag the saturation down to that green and kind of make it like a pale gray bucket maybe. Maybe I need to increase this saturation just a little bit more. Okay, and we're going to continue to get rid of distracting elements in the scene. So we'll control to deselect. So now it's not so distracting. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with this boy's shoes over here. So we're going to go back to this. We're going to grab our lasso tool. I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to just select his shoes. Okay, and we're going to do Control J or Command J. And they're on a layer by itself now. Okay, so we're going to grab the Magic Wand tool, and we're going to select that white area. Alright, so we want to select all of this area, and if we hit the Shift key, we can select more, but you'll see that it starts to grow down here on this gray tile, and we only want to select the white area of the shoes. Alright, so what are we going to do? I'm going to get my color swatches back to the default by hitting the D key. And right here, there's this little guy. It's a rectangle or a circle. This is called Quick Mask. Now you can see that everything that's white is selected. Everything that's red is not selected. It's masked. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here Okay, let me zoom in a little bit more so you can see better. And I'm going to grab my brush tool. And painting in black or white is the same as painting in any other mask. This is called quick mask mode. So if you hit the X key, we want to get rid of everything in here that's red, because we want to select all that stuff that's bright white. Okay, so we want this to be part of our selection. So just remove it, any of the red. I can grab a little bit more of it if I want. Just go in there and paint it away. Okay, now with the other part that we don't want selected, like the street, we're going to hit the X key and we're going to paint in with that. Just paint that all red, because I don't want to affect that. So we hit the quick mask mode again. I'm going to loosen this selection up here again. I'm going to hit the X key. And I'm going to make the hardness of my brush a little softer. I'm just going to hit this edge just a little bit. Alright. So now we hit this quick mask mode again. You can see that we've got a selection. Now I've got to clean this up again. So go back into mask mode, and I can see where I missed some things. So we'll hit it to preview. And I need to work right there real quick. And I've got some areas where there's some red sparklies in there. You can see right where you've missed very easily in this mode. See, we missed some over here. We missed some in the front. So we just turn it back off and paint it out of there. And you can quickly forget. Alright, that looks pretty good. So now we've got this selection. What do we want to do with it? I want to darken it. So I'm going to go Image, Adjustments, Brightness, Contrast. And I'm going to bring the brightness down of those white shoelaces. Now I know that if I put contrast on them, it's going to bring it out. So I'm just going to bring that contrast off. Control D to deselect. Okay. Now don't worry about the way they look right now, because we're going to blur that all out. So let's turn back on our bucket, and let's turn back on our image. And you can just see that our eyes don't go to those shoes. Alright? Get where I'm going with this? We're just going to remove these distracting elements. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to do the same thing with this guy's shoe here. I'm going to grab my lasso tool. We need to make sure we're selected on the layer that has the information. So let's grab our lasso tool and let's real carefully select this guy's shoe. Same thing. Control J or Command J on a Mac. I'm going to turn off everything else so I can see the shoe. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab the magic wand tool and we'll select it. I'm going to hold shift. We'll select a little bit more. Just give me a starting point when I go into quick mask. Same thing. So paint with the brush tool. I'm just going to go kind of quicker because this tutorial is already 15 minutes. The retouching takes so long. especially when you're trying to fix mistakes. That's why it's so important to get it right in camera. However, this you'll never get right in camera. I might be able to take a shot where his foot isn't cropped at the bottom, but so we'll call that good. Maybe I need to paint a little bit right there. So we're going to hit our quick mask mode, and the shortcut is the letter Q. Q for quick mask. Do the same thing. Since we're only working on one layer, we're going to do adjustments from the menu. And we're going to do brightness contrast. Brightness, bring that down. And kill the contrast. And we'll click OK. Control D. Command D to deselect. And we'll turn our image back on. And let's zoom back out. So now we've dealt with the bucket. So let's do this. We're going to make a complete copy of the image up to this point. So to do so, the shortcut is Alt Control Shift E or Option Command Shift E, and it makes a new layer with all of the adjustments up to that point. So we can just get rid of these other layers. Okay, let's just delete them. And now we have a before and an after. Now you could have saved those just for a safety net if you wanted to, but I didn't really want to. I just wanted to show you how you can merge everything to a single layer. Alright, so we got our before and after. So now with this layer selected, we're going to do some things. We're going to blur everything. So I'm going to make another copy of the background layer. Just so I've got one fresh one, because I'm going to have to use two, because I'm going to blur this one, and I'm going to use this one for some selections. So we're going to go Image, Blur, Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm trying to look at the picture to see how much blur actually there's in it, and how much do I want to take away from the background elements. Okay, so let's come over here and look at our, I'm not so worried about, I want to see this guy's face. Okay, I want to blur it some more. I think something like that will work. Okay, somewhere around 14. So every image will be different. Okay, so now we've got this blur going on. I want to put a layer mask on it, and I only want to selectively apply it. So let's do that. We'll hold down the Alt key and we'll click our layer mask icon, and it hides the blur. And then we're going to use the gradient tool. Okay, when you select on the gradient tool, we're going to go foreground to black background. Okay, remember, black conceals, white reveals. Okay, so if you have to switch your chips, you can. So we'll just come over here and watch this layer mask and see what happens. We have to select it. And you can see that we're inverted. We need it to go the other way. Actually, we don't need it to go the other way. We just need it to make sure that it's not so much. Okay, so now you can see that he's not as blurry as the background, but it's kind of at an angle. Alright, so if you're looking at this, you can see where the angle is. So now we're going to go on with our brush tool. Okay, and we're going to remove the blur from our guy. Okay, so we're going to zoom in a little bit. We're done with the brush, with the gradient tool, so we need to grab our brush, and we're going to make it kind of soft, maybe 40. And we're going to paint inside black, because black is revealing everything. And we'll just take this blur off of our guy. Now he had some motion blur already on his hand, but we didn't want it to be blurry on his neck and his shoulders, all the stuff that wasn't blurry. We don't want it to be blurry. We just want to blur that background. Do you notice how those gray shoes in the um, that looked all jacked up before because of the selection I made? It doesn't matter the selection I made anymore because it's all blurry. So we'll finish coming in here, getting rid of the blur. And if you're worried about where you've got your mask on your image, if you do the backslash key, watch what happens. Now it shows the layer mask on the actual image. So obviously everything in red is going to be revealing. Everything that's not in red is going to be blurry. Alright. And back that off a little bit. So I want this background over here to be a little bit blurry. So I'm going to soften my brush to 0. And I'm going to hit the X key and we're going to invert and we're going to make this blurry. So everything that is not red is blurry. Okay? Because of the layer mask. I'm going to tighten my brush up a little bit when I'm working around our guy. Not that much. So I have to hit X again. And then work with a soft brush. X. This takes a second to get used to. And if you just want to change your flow, you can control how much actually gets applied. Change my flow back up. And I just want to control that transition from foreground to background blur element. Same over here. Okay. So to get rid of that overlay, we're going to hit the backslash key again. And now you can see that there's before and after. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now let's deal with forcing your eye to the middle of the frame. So let's go ahead and we're going to just grab a loose selection around our guy. Okay? Grab your box with your marquee selection tool and we're going to select refine edge and we're just going to feather it. Okay? And it doesn't matter what layer we're on at this point because we're going to put a curves adjustment on this. Okay? So actually I want to feather it some more. Refine edge, feather. I want the corners to be pretty rounded. And I might need to shift the edge out just a little bit. So we're going to click OK. And now I want to invert the selection because I want everything else. If I just grab the curves tool now, it's going to adjust dark whatever's in the middle of that selection. I don't want that to happen. So I want to invert my selection. Control Shift I. And now we're going to do a curves adjustment to the whole image. Okay. It's going to be on a new layer. So I'm going to come over here kind of in the lower area because the whites are up here and the darks are over here. And I'm going to just pull in a vignette kind of. Alright. Maybe a little bit more. Alright. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brush to get rid of it. And I'm going to invert the brushes to put it where I want it and take it away from where I don't. Okay, so we're going to grab our brush tool. We're going to work on this layer mask. So we're going to work 100% flow with a soft edge brush. And since we're going to be painting in black, it'll get rid of it off of him. Okay. And if we hit the X key, we can come in and we can just darken it all the way around him. And then we'll use the opacity of that layer to control how much is there. We could apply it to the whole thing if we wanted to. But I like that mask overlay. I just did a quick one. So we're going to hit that backslash key again. And I'm going to remove it off everywhere except it's on him. So hit the X key. Let's zoom in some. Remember, the goal is just to force your eye just to our guy. And we're going to do so with darks and lights. And it don't have to be perfect, but we're going to do the best we can to do a good job. So I'm just going to paint over his whole foot and then just take it off the back side. A little bit on his hands here. So it just takes time, guys. There's nothing you can do except take your time and do it. Okay. So we hit their backslash key again. And now we'll use the opacity to control how much that we want to apply. Alrighty. And then you can also control with the fill. Let's back that off a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing as before. Is we're going to do Control Alt Shift E or Command Option Shift E, and we're going to create that new layer. I'm going to turn all these other ones off. And there we have a before and an after. So let's zoom in. So let's take a look. If you close your eyes and open your eyes kind of wander all over the scene. Yeah, you see the guy, but they just wander. So now I'm going to turn it back on. Now close your eyes and open your eyes again. Now your eyes just goes directly to the dancer. Do you see how removing the distracting elements forces you to the middle? Now if you really want to force somebody to the middle, on top of this we would just create another vignette. So we'll just do that real quick. We'll make a selection. Select, refine edge, feather. Okay. Shift the edge just a little bit out. We'll click OK. Control Shift I, Command Shift I to invert it. We'll go to our curves. We'll go down to this lower part of the histogram in the curves, and we'll just drag it down. Okay. And then I'm going to use my brush tool to take it off a little bit from down below. Use a soft brush. Just put some detail in these pants because we Brought it down. Just make them pop a little bit. Maybe a little bit here. That's how those bright shoes just drag you right in. Alright. Now, do the same thing again. Control Alt Shift E just for one last before and after. This is before and this is after. Let me zoom that out. The whole idea is controlling your viewer's eye when you make an image. When you're working in the street, you have very little effort over that control of where your position is, especially if you're in some kind of a crowd. Now, tomorrow I will do another tutorial and I will show you how to create or how to straighten the image and put in information using content aware fill and use masks to take it away to actually get the image rotated correctly and maybe recompose it. So I want to thank you all for taking time to visit my blog today. I'm so sorry that this is a long video. This process takes a long time to fix boo-boos when you're making images. And if you guys have any questions or comments in the blog, please leave them. If you got any ideas for tutorials or questions about anything in tutorials, please feel free to ask in the comment section on the blog. I'll be happy to make a tutorial specifically for you. Thank you all for visiting today. Until tomorrow, we'll see you soon.